cut and dry. One of the points behind pseudogenes is that they're busted. They don't work. I have a list of 6 articles here from science journals ranging between 1986 and 2003 where they're demonstrating various pseudogenes do have function. Not all of them, of course, but we're finding function in some. Here's one from a 2003 Annual Review of Genetics. It says, quote, "Rather, pseudogenes that have been pseudily investigated often exhibit functional roles such as gene expression, gene regulation, generation of genetic diversity. Pseudogenes are involved in gene conversion or recombination with functional genes. Pseudogenes exhibit evolutionary conservation of gene sequences, reduced nucleotide variability, excess synonymous over non-synonymous nucleotide polymorphism." And for those non-scientific in the audience, the last part says, "and other features that are expected in genes or DNA sequences that have functional roles." So they're not all...
Let me just interrupt for a second.
Sure.
I agree with you that they find some functions for some pseudogenes. Okay, now one thing
Okay.
is these are called unitary pseudogenes, and by definition there is no function for these.
Okay.
The second thing is, even if there is a function found, it doesn't affect the argument at all because you're seeing the descent in the code.
I'll get to that.
Okay.
Okay. When it comes to no function right now, you know, this was kind of the same argument with the junk DNA, and over the course of time, we've been finding more and more evidence for functionality in everything. So just because we don't know what it is now doesn't mean we won't find a function. All right. There are a lot of cases where you say that the genes, the pseudogenes that we have, they're busted, but in our ancestors they were not. Well, we are finding a lot of cases where the pseudogenes, the alleged pseudogenes in the ancestors appear to be busted, but in us they are not. These are some of the functional ones. I've got 9 articles that describe that. They are actually opposite of what we would expect. I have 5 articles here that talk about how the pseudogenes, they don't appear to be changing randomly.
Can you give a reference for one of those articles where you said that it looked like we had a busted ancestor gene, but ours works? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Can you give
yeah.
one reference for that?
Okay, here's one from Genetics and Molecular Biology, 2000, published in 2000. Mitochondrial DNA-like sequence in the nuclear genome of, I can't pronounce that. Okay. It's some kind of primate name.
Okay, well, you can give me an email later.
Yeah, I can give you these references. All right. It doesn't look like they're changing randomly. If they were non-functional, you know, we would expect that mutations would get into them randomly from time to time, and they do change up a bit. But it seems like they're changing non-randomly. It seems like it's deliberate for some reason. We have no idea. It seems like translation most often occurs. Translation occurs a lot more so than any other type of mutation in these, which is strange. If we have a nucleotide that right next to that nucleotide is one specific type of nucleotide rather than one of the other types of nucleotides, it's more likely to change, which is strange. We don't know why, but statistically, it's looking like there's purposes behind this. They're not random. I have 5 articles that talk about that. And then you mentioned that when we compare the pseudogenes...
Well, can I just say that, again, if it's random, it doesn't matter, because I'm
but it doesn't look like they're random.
I'm talking about the descent. You can see the descent. So whether they're random or not, you can see the pattern.
Okay, that goes back to my 9 articles that it doesn't look like. And then the other thing, I have an article here that talks about how when you look at the pseudogenes and the supposed descent that they show us, oftentimes it doesn't line up with the fossils. Oftentimes it doesn't line up with the morphology and what we think the evolution should look like. There's an article, How Reliable Are Human Phylogenetic Hypotheses? Proceedings from the National Academy of Sciences, published in 2000. So there are a lot of problems with this. They are not nearly as cut and dry as it sounds. They don't necessarily show the descent that we're looking for. And you know, it looks like they have a purpose.
What's the article name?
That one was the name, How Reliable Are Human Phylogenetic Hypotheses?
Can you commit, can you,
Can you guys
yeah,
ask
good.
them a question?
Well, can you commit to giving me the links and,
Let Dan into the.
I just want, okay, I just want to say, I just want to say, I want to say on videotape, can you commit, I just want to say on videotape, can you commit to giving me the links and an email, and then I'll post these?
Absolutely, I'll
Okay,
give
thank
you everything I have here.
Okay.
I think Peloton's answer.
I'm sorry?
Isn't it the dissent that matters, not?
Well, let's move on to another one. I want to give them a chance to ask us a question.
Go ahead, why don't you ask them?
I don't know, I got something, do you have something?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, let's see. Let's see what I got. All right, in 2005, geneticist John Sanford wrote the book Genetic Entropy and the Mystery of the Genome. Sanford used to be an evolutionist. He became a creationist in part because of the kind of information he details in his book. It's been known since the 1950s that while we may be getting the occasional good mutation to promote evolution, which I would disagree with that, but I mean, evolutionists are acknowledging the vast majority of mutations are harmful. The vast majority also have effects that are so small it doesn't seem like natural selection can remove them. This has been discussed a lot in science journals. The problem has been called the genetic load. Simply put, with this flood of bad mutations chipping away at our genome, how can the occasional good mutation ever be a significant benefit? We've got a few articles here. I'll just give you the title of one. Comes from Journal of Theoretical Biology, 1995. The title, Contamination of the Genome by Very Slight Deleterious Mutations. Why have we not died 100 times over? So that's my question. With all of these, with this genetic load, with these mutations, these harmful ones weighing us down, and being so small that natural selection can't really select them out, but we build up and build up and build up this genetic load, how can we survive long enough to evolve at all?
Dan,
Yes.
go ahead.
Okay, well, so again, this is, when I prepared for this, I have to admit, I didn't know any questions or what we're gonna talk about. I think it's fair game. So my understanding about the whole process of evolution is not just genetic mutations. There's random selection, of course, there's random mutations and mutations like that, but there's natural selection. And this process is profoundly slow. My also understanding about this is that the great majority of changes, mutations, are neutral. They don't have positive or negative effects, and they happen all the time. But they do happen, and there's evidence humans are evolving, as we currently are. And you say, what's the evidence? That things like height and other physical structures, I can't give specifics, but that this is not something that is debated.
You're talking
By
microevolution?
sexual selections.
You're talking within the human species. you're
Yes,
not
of
talking-
course.
yeah.
Yeah, by selection.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Can
so
you explain the specific designs? Like you go from a fish to a bird, these are designed specifically for the function that they do, you know, and they're perfectly designed
mhm,
to accomplish this.
right. Well, yeah.
Well, a bird that can fly has a wing.
99% of all species have gone extinct. That's not perfect design.
It's because of the flood.
Oh.
But the flies and
I'm saying
mosquitoes,
if I
the
see a
flies and
bird
mosquitoes are
fly,
perfectly
it's
designed to
job.
wreak havoc, you know.
So, you know, the most
nature
common
was
example
cursed.
on that's
Yeah, we got.
the
you guys
eye.
do
Well,
both?
I'll give it,
Yeah, I do.
I'll just give a short answer. My perspective is that, yes, I'll freely admit there's gaps. And it's not like there's a few gaps, there's an incredible amount of gaps. But do you want to base your belief on gaps, or do you want to base your belief on the evidence? And I think the evidence for evolution is overwhelming, so I don't try to poke at it by saying, well, look at this, we don't know this, of course we don't know that, we don't know this, we don't know that, there's tons of things we don't know. But your argument is, it's called an argument from ignorance. We don't know this, therefore, hey, my theory is just as good.
We
Explain
know-
this, I
We know a
can't.
lot of
Okay,
things, though.
see?
We're
Yeah,
pretty
but-
smart people.
But do you think it's a point in your favor that we can't explain something?
I think we should be able to explain a lot more than we are.
Yeah, we can explain a lot of it, that what you're saying that we can't, there are gaps, we do
Well,
have explanations.
what's harder to explain? How humans might have evolved from apes, or how a platypus got to Australia from the Ark?
They're both hard.
No, I don't think they're on the same level,
Okay.
really. So, I mean,
Yeah, if you want, or.
Who's first on the
We got a
closing?
little more time.
I-
You want, you want me
You
to
went
answer one
first, so
or
we'd
two
be
more?
first on rebuttal.
No, I can.
You know, can I say something just real quick? Can I just really quick, because you guys both brought up stuff about how so many Christians and churches and evangelicals think that evolution can work. And I just want to make the point that it can't. It absolutely cannot for many reasons. I'll pick on one, all right? Jesus came here to die for our sins. That's what Christians believe. That's what the Christian church has always believed. Why did his death take away our sins? It's because death is the penalty for sin. Death has always been the penalty for sin. This is the Christian worldview. If you commit a crime and you go before a judge and the judge says, you know, your penalty is death sentence for your crime, that is the only penalty that will pay for your crime. So if death is not the penalty for sin, then Jesus' death did not pay the penalty for his sins. In other words, if death was around before mankind, if we were all destined to die, if that's the way the world was, if things have been living and dying for hundreds of millions of years, then death cannot be the penalty for sin because it's already happening. It's not much of a penalty. So if death was around before sin and man, death cannot be the penalty for sin. Therefore, Christ's physical death did not pay the penalty for our sins.
So you're saying from an evangelical point of view, that's why the evangelical cannot accept the theory of evolution.
It attacks the gospel directly. This is not some minor academic issue, right?
So it's a philosophical
We've been
argument.
to our
that
closing?
I guess.
Who's first on the closing?
This is really a great discussion.
I'll go.
Evolution.
Guys, she's talking.
Yeah,
Okay.
finish, go ahead.
I was just trying to clarify what you were saying.
Yes.
Good. So that's your explanation of why, and
Why-
it's not really consistent with their theology for an evangelical to say evolution's okay.
Correct.
Where's the eye safe in the Bible?
Well, I think we need to, we're out of time here.
Israel
You
didn't
can
have
ask
an
some
ice
questions
age.
here when we're finished. You guys gotta wrap up? Do you wanna wrap up?
Yeah, let's do our.
These guys start because
let's-
you started?
Okay, let's do our
Okay, you
closing
guys start.
statements, and then we can go
We can ask a
into
couple
more
more after
questions.
that.
Yeah, usually people hang out afterwards and we will talk a lot more. Okay, so we had 2 minutes each for a closing statement, right?
Whatever.
Well,
At this point,
let's not do, let's do 2 minutes,
Let's
please.
do it quickly.
yeah.
Let's do 2 minutes. Okay. I want to reiterate that evolution is not for Christians only. There's some famous Christians, Billy Graham. I mean, if you say you can't be a Christian and an evolutionist, you're going to be arguing with people like Billy Graham, William Lane Craig, who's a preeminent Christian philosopher and debater who's
Love to
a
hear their
big-time debater.
explanation.
Can you hold on about 2 minutes?
Right.
Okay, and then the Roman Catholic Church is, if you consider Catholics as Christians, they're by far the largest denomination. So, I mean, it's kind of weird for a smaller group to say, oh, we're the true Christians, when another group has a self-identity as a Christian, and they're so much bigger. I mean, more than twice, probably 10 times. Then I think I have 2 evidences here for evolution, which I think are pretty much ironclad: the pseudogene argument and the fused human chromosome number 2, and you go to the webpage here for more information later. There's the RATE project that Young Earthers have given us, an 8-year project that Brandon, I think, and Dennis both liked, and their fellow Christians have rejected that at the ASA. Also, Dennis has said prior to that he thinks the speed of light has decayed to try to explain how the Big Bang could work with a young Earth at 10,000 years old. And I want to say that has also been rebuked by ICR, the Institute for Creation Research. So even their fellow young Earthers had said this is not a good argument. And then finally, I want to make a point that I am an atheist, but I don't really like to promote atheism because atheism says what it's not. It's not a belief in God. I'd rather promote something that's a positive belief, and that's called secular humanism. And basically, the 2 major points of secular humanism is that it's naturalistic, so it appeals to both atheists and agnostics. There's no gods, no demons, no heaven and hell. The second thing is that it's based on critical thinking. So we base all our worldview and understanding on logic and reason, and not superstition or anything else that can't be proven. So that's my summary.
Okay, I'd like to use my 2 minutes just to put everything in a perspective here. After seeing all the evidence presented tonight, it's apparent that although evolutionists brand Christians solely as believers, they themselves are very much believers in a theory that has no support, like dates based on flawed dating systems, no missing links, geological misinterpretations, etc. The tragedy here is that under the evolution belief system and its accompanying censorship of opposing views in the mainstream institutions, not here, We've had Hitler, racism, declining social statistics in America, like addiction, STDs, abortion, broken families, crime, like the current flag.